We may have just had April Fool's Day, but mama didn't raise no fool. I know that here in April, when it comes to rankings for fantasy football, they only serve one purpose: to establish a baseline. Let's get some names on paper in spots that just make sense. Then between now and your fantasy football drafts in like August, we can make tweaks depending on how this offseason goes. That's right, you don't want to overcomplicate the game of fantasy football. Don't try to sit here in April and act like you have all the answers to the upcoming season. You don't. No one does. If you just stay realistic, you will find so much more success in this game. Now, if you like that kind of approach, you're definitely going to love our draft guide here for 2025. It has all the information that you need to make smart and informed decisions that will allow you to just air hump your opponents. It's got dynasty content, it's got redraft content, it's got everything in between. So head over to tfhdraftguide.com right now and get yours pre-ordered. If you don't, your league mates will, and then you'll lose, and losing sucks. But alright, let's go ahead and establish that baseline and dive into tier 1 here of our wide receiver rankings. And I don't think there's a lot of surprises here in Tier 1. We got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, Malik Nabers, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas Jr., and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, when it comes to Jamar Chase, he's coming off the Triple Crown in 2024. Led the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns at the wide receiver position. But I'm not expecting that to happen again. But his situation really hasn't changed much, if at all, so there's no reason to not start him right here at the top. Then we got Justin Jefferson, and Jefferson has shown he can produce with any quarterback, and he doesn't even need to play more than 10 games a year to get you 1,000 yards. He's too consistent and too much of that offense in Minnesota to not keep him right here at number 2. Then for CeeDee Lamb, the guy just had over 1,200 total yards and 6 touchdowns, and all of us are disappointed in fantasy football land. Dak should be back, and he's looking healthy, and if it stays that way once again, we're probably talking about a wide receiver that's going to be hovering right around 1,500 yards once again. Then we move down to Puka Nacua. We know that Cooper Kupp is gone. Devontae Adams is in. Adams has more in the tank than Kupp did, and he will command more defensive attention. But Puka, once again, is about to get peppered with targets. Do not forget, this guy had 106 targets in 2024. Now, while that doesn't sound like a lot, he only played 11 games. How about number 5, Malik Nabers of the New York Giants? This young stud had 1,200 yards with Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Tim Boyle. I don't care if it's Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, it's an improvement. And talent-wise, Malik Nabers is up there with the likes of Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. I got him right now inside my top 5. Then we move down to Nico Collins. Nico was putting on a show, even with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell at times last year. Well, now Diggs is gone to New England. Dell, he's out for the year, and the only wide receiver they've added of any relevance is Christian Kirk, who's often injured. With the ceiling we've seen from Nico Collins, I'm keeping him in tier 1. How about Brian Thomas Jr. up next of the Jacksonville Jaguars? And he put up numbers with both Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones. We know Christian Kirk is gone. Evan Ingram is gone. He's in Denver, and they only brought in Diami Brown, who's not a bad role player guy, but he's not an alpha that's going to take away looks from Brian Thomas Jr. He could be among NFL target leaders in 2025. Then we round out tier 1 with Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. And even though I don't think this offense changes much without Ben Johnson calling the plays, it's the emergence of Jameson Williams that has just lowered the overall ceiling slightly for Amon-Ra St. Brown, so he'll round out tier 1. All right, let's bring up tier 2. And here in tier 2, we got Ladd McConkey, Drake London, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, and JSN Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now, at the top of the tier, we got Ladd McConkey, and he is one of my favorite off-season wide receivers. He didn't really start to hit his stride until late in the season last year, and then he averaged 15.5 fantasy points per game from week 11 on. We know that Quentin Johnston is the modern-day Devin Funchess, and Mike Williams is always hurt. Ladd McConkey could definitely explode in 2025. How about Drake London up next? And let me just say this. London only had 3 100-yard games in 2024. 2 of those 3 were in the last 3 weeks of the season with quarterback Michael Penix. He also had 39 targets over those 3 games. Good Lord, we could be seeing all kinds of volume going the way of Drake London. How about A.J. Brown up next, and a little bit lower than maybe in years past, but with the way this team dominates on the ground with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, he just isn't needed as much as he has been in the past. Then we go down to Tyreek Hill. And I'm gonna be honest right here. I don't know what the heck to expect from Tyreek Hill. He wants to be in Miami. He doesn't want to be in Miami. He needs a healthy Tua, and that's really hard to depend on for a full season. He's just too good to give up on, but too risky to drop anymore. Then we move down to Mike Evans, Mr. Consistency. Basically penciled in for 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns every season at this point. We know that Chris Godwin is coming off of a major injury. We know that Baker is going to force big plays down the field to Mike Evans, so really, he deserves to be a Verge wide receiver 1 right here towards the middle of tier 2. How about Terry McLaurin up next? Similar to Mike Evans, pretty consistent when it comes to 1,000-yard seasons. McLaurin has had 5 straight, and now defenses will have to focus on Deebo Samuel as well. Now, while the touchdowns may come down slightly for Terry McLaurin, he's still a solid wide receiver 2 in 2025. Then we round out tier 2 with Jackson Smith and Jigba. DK is gone. Geno is gone. Now JSN has Sam Darnold, MVS, and Cooper Kupp to deal with. Now, Kupp is the hometown guy, and Darnold has no chemistry with JSN. This is really the only reason I don't have him any higher, but he's still here inside tier 2. Which brings us down to tier 3 of Davante Adams, DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, Jameson Williams, and Xavier Worthy. Now for Davante Adams, no way his situation as a whole can be worse than it was last year, where he still had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. I definitely expect Sean McVay to keep this passing offense wide open. While teams are going to be keying in on Puka Nacua and all his volume, we could see more big plays from Davante Adams. What about DJ Moore up next? And I can't stress enough how big of an upgrade Ben Johnson will be to this Chicago offense. Keenan Allen is gone, and Caleb Williams will have a much better situation behind an improved offensive line. Then we go down to T. Higgins. Now we know what this looks like in Cincinnati. The only thing we really have to worry about yearly when it comes to T. Higgins is his health. He's never played a full season, but the offense will once again be high-powered through the air. Then we got Garrett Wilson. This is not a Garrett Wilson issue. It's a Jets organization problem. And now we have to rely on Justin Fields throwing the ball a lot to Garrett Wilson. And for those of you that want to bring up DJ Moore's past success with Justin Fields, they're not even close to the same kind of receivers. So when I put Garrett Wilson at 19, it's because I see really one of 2 things happening. The first thing, he may rack up a ton of underneath receptions and get close to 100 catches, but see decreased yardage and touchdowns. Or they're going to keep him in a similar type role, and he's really going to be a weekly boomer bust type play, really dependent on a big play touchdown weekly. Then we go down to Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens, and once again, Baltimore didn't make wide receiver a priority this offseason. Just another aging vet that they added in DeAndre Hopkins. We saw this same old story with Odell Beckham a couple years ago. This means it's another year of a lot of targets going the way of Zay Flowers. Then we move down to Cortland Sutton in Denver. Bo Nix is coming into his 2nd year. Denver did just add Evan Ingram to the tight end position, but aside from that, Sutton is still in the wide receiver 1 driver's seat in Denver, and he's been an absolute touchdown magnet in that offense with Sean Payton as the head coach. How about Jameson Williams next? He's coming off a breakout season, his first 1,000-yard season. Now he's fairly big play dependent, and he's not the only weapon in town. Because of that, it's going to keep him as a Verge top 25 guy almost every single year. Then we round out tier 3 with Xavier Worthy. If the Chiefs wide receivers could stay out of trouble, for the love of all things holy, really have no idea what's going to happen this offseason with Rashee Rice. He looks like he could be healthy, but he could also be suspended. Hollywood Brown is also coming back. Just a lot of unknowns in this offense. As of right now, Xavier Worthy does stand, though, to be the highest ceiling wide receiver in 2025. Just a lot to pay attention to in Kansas City. Which means all we have left is tier 4, where we got Deebo Samuel, Rome Odunze, Devontae Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, DK Metcalf, and Khalil Shakir. Now for Debo, leaving San Francisco is really what he needed. Now he can get back to being an actual wide receiver and not just reliant on getting a bunch of short passes around the line of scrimmage that force him to do all of the work on his own. With the way this offense will be opened up in Washington, I expect Debo Samuel to have more big-time plays in 2025. That's why he's inside the top 24. Then we got Rome Odunze. I know we already mentioned that Keenan Allen is gone. And with offensive head coach Ben Johnson now in Chicago, all Rome Odunze needs is opportunity, which right now he is definitely in line to get. Which takes us down to 26. It's Devontae Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. I know a lot of people want him higher, but the same goes for Devontae Smith that goes for AJ Brown. With the way they run the ball successfully in Philadelphia and so frequently, it just lowers the overall ceiling. If it's going to fall for AJ Brown, it's going to fall for Devontae Smith as well. Then we have Marvin Harrison Jr. in Arizona, and I am convinced that this is an Arizona offense issue and not a Marv issue. He only had 3 games last year where he saw at least 10 targets, and that is absolutely stupid. How about Chris Olave here in tier 4? 2 of the biggest questions. 1, can he stay on the field? And 2, can Derek Carr not suck, please? Really hoping that new head coach Kellen Moore can help this overall offense, but still a lot of risk. So Chris Olave down here inside of tier 4. Then we got DK Metcalf now of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let me get this straight. This offense couldn't get the ball to George Pickens consistently with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, but now they've added DK Metcalf, and their current starting quarterback is Mason Rudolph. Now don't get me wrong, DK is like a top 15 talent at the position easy, but with the way that this offense is lining up right now, I'm not too enthused. Which means we can end things here with Khalil Shakir of the Buffalo Bills. We know Amari Cooper is gone and Josh Palmer is in. We also know that Josh Palmer is hurt almost every single year, and Khalil Shakir remains the safety blanket to Josh Allen. He's coming off a career year and has an opportunity to build on it in 2025. Now, as much as I would like to cut off the top 30 right here, I do have a few guys that I want to go over that are on the outside looking in. The wide receiver position is so deep in fantasy football, you can make a case for almost each one of these guys as well, being up inside tier 4. So when we look at the guys who are just on the outside looking in, we got guys like Rashid Shaheed. He was the wide receiver 17 before getting hurt in 2024. He should be back and healthy. How about the duo of receivers now in San Francisco, Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings? One of these guys is going to be up inside the top 25 by the time the season starts. Who is it going to be? A lot of people see the big plays of Jawan Jennings last year and really want it to be him. But Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick that had to start the season recovering from being shot. As much as I like Jawan Jennings, I have a feeling that Ricky Pearsall could be the de facto wide receiver 1 in San Francisco this year with Debo Samuel gone and Brandon Ayuk coming off of a major injury. How about George Pickens? We mentioned him when talking about DK Metcalf. They absolutely hate George Pickens in Pittsburgh. There's really nothing else to it. What about Jalen Waddle in Miami? Can he stay healthy? That's the biggest question. Well, that and can Tua stay healthy? Because we have no idea right now what's going on with Tyreek Hill. There are rumors floating out there that he could be a draft night trade, and if that happens, Jalen Waddle could find himself with more opportunity. Then we got Rashee Rice. If this dude is healthy and does not get suspended, he's easily a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy football. Cooper Kupp going to Seattle, going to play at home with a quarterback that really wants a safety blanket. Then we move down to Chris Godwin in Tampa Bay. He's coming off a major injury, but he was a top 12 fantasy wide receiver and absolutely killing it in the slot during his new role in 2024. If he comes back healthy, he needs to be considered alongside another wide receiver coming off of injury. Stephon Diggs is now going to New England, and there are going to be targets aplenty available for him in this offense. The Patriots haven't had a wide receiver that could soak up huge volume in years, and if Diggs comes back healthy in 2025, do not be surprised if he sees 120 plus targets. Alright, so there you have our baseline wide receiver rankings. We will make tweaks to these rankings over the next few weeks, over the next few months, so by the time we draft fantasy football teams, we have the best damn rankings in the land. Now, if you haven't done so already, do me a favor by hitting the like button and consider subscribing if you're not already a subscriber. It's free and easy to do, and I can guarantee you, you will become a better fantasy football player because of it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get out for the day, though. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.